Good afternoon, everyone. It's Carissa Chuka with Results Repeat. We have a few more people coming in the waiting room, so we'll give these people about a minute more to join and then we'll get started. In the meantime, I think all of you are muted, but on the off chance that you are not muted, go ahead and mute yourself so that we can all hear Meg clearly. All right, it's 12:01, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have a few more people filing into the waiting room, so I will continue to admit them as they come along. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining our Lunch and Learn today, the basics of SEO that every marketer should know. I'm really excited for this one myself, and I think that you will find it very useful and informative. For those of you who don't know us or haven't been to a Lunch and Learn before, our agency is called Results Repeat. We focus on delivering SEO, digital advertising on nearly every platform, and building and designing websites. Today, our conversation, of course, will be focused on SEO, but if you have any questions about any of those areas of marketing, you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. Again, my name is Carissa Chuka. I'll be moderating the chat, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end with Meg to ask some questions that may come to mind as you listen to her presentation today. Feel free to pop those questions into the chat so we can check them out at the end. And without any further ado, I will hand the reins over to Meg, who will be giving our presentation today.
Great. Thanks, Carissa. Again, I'm Meg Amis. I'm a marketing strategy manager at Results Repeat. In my role, I work with potential clients to understand their business goals and help them explore different marketing channels and strategies. Before joining Results Repeat team, my marketing career had been all in-house marketing. In college, I interned for the Sixers and the Flyers. After that, I worked for a few different industries in both B2B and B2C. And my most recent role was leading the marketing for Villanova University's College of Engineering. Being that I was usually on a smaller team of 1 to 2 marketers, I wore several hats, and I was responsible for many, if not all of the things that you see here at one point or another. And I'm sure a lot of you joining today can relate, as there are many elements that fall under the marketing umbrella when it comes to supporting your organization's business objectives. While I had a basic understanding of SEO, I had to be thoughtful with how I spent my time on marketing, and I never really knew how to dive in and make any kind of measurable impact with SEO. I actually started here on the SEO team, and I learned so much. Our team is awesome. They're super enthusiastic about SEO and sharing their knowledge, thankfully. So as I was learning tools and tactics, it was like a whole new world of marketing and opportunities had opened up. I don't know about you, but for me, SEO used to feel like a topic that was really intimidating. So now I realize it doesn't have to be. And today I wanted to share some basics that I've learned along the way that I wish I would have known as an in-house marketer. While there are technical and on-page and off-page factors of SEO to consider in your overall SEO strategy, for today's purposes, I'm going to focus strictly on a few of the on-page SEO tactics that you can start implementing immediately. So this is just a quick snapshot of what I'll be covering today. What is SEO and why does it matter? Some easy SEO tactics and tools, other SEO factors to keep in mind, where to get started, and then there'll be some time at the end for Q&A. So before I jump in, I just wanted to get a sense of who's joining us today and what your experience is with SEO. So if you could, just drop a 1 in the chat if you're fairly new to SEO, drop a 2 in the chat if you do some SEO in your role now, but you're interested in learning more, and drop a 3 in the chat if SEO is your primary focus in your job. So awesome. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So according to HubSpot, 75% of searchers never even go past the first page of search results. This is why SEO is so powerful. Some people think SEO doesn't apply to them, but if you have a website that you want people to visit, you can benefit from SEO. And when a company invests in a website redesign without investing in SEO, there's too much left to chance. That is why it is so important to incorporate SEO into your overall marketing strategy. So what is SEO? It stands for search engine optimization, but to keep it simple, we'll stick with SEO for the presentation. But from a marketer's perspective, the objective of SEO is to optimize a website for search engines to increase your ranking, improve your visibility. And with those two things, you're going to drive more targeted traffic to your website. So think about it this way. If your website is your top salesperson, think of SEO as your best referral source. The better your SEO is, the better your traffic's going to be, meaning that your leads are going to be more qualified with a higher intent of purchase, which translates into more revenue for your company. So we've covered what SEO is. Let's talk about what it's not. SEO is organic, means you don't have to pay a fee to Google to do search engine optimization. So if you're running a paid ads campaign and you do a Google search and your site shows up in this space right here, it's because of the paid ads. It has nothing to do with SEO. And I'm probably stating the obvious here, but I just wanted to be sure to separate the two. SEO would impact the results that show below this ad, below these ads. And also you'll notice a theme here throughout the presentation. So we are big pet lovers at Results Repeat, and I'm hoping that some of you are too, because I am using examples of dogs throughout the presentation. And in this example in particular, I was looking for a personalized birthday cake for my dog, because I am one of those dog people. Anyway, SEO does not happen overnight. It's not a fair expectation to implement SEO on a Monday and reap the benefits by Friday. You need to allow time for Google and other search engines to do their thing. Google, or in most cases, it's like 3 to 6 months before you start seeing results. And it's also not something that you can set up once and forget about. It's an ongoing practice. I like to think of SEO as a wellness plan for your website, similar to a wellness plan for yourself. You can't spend one day eating fruits and vegetables and hitting the gym and then wake up the next morning expecting to be in the best shape of your life, even though that would be awesome. But the same is true for SEO. You have to be doing it consistently over time to see results, and keep doing it. So before diving into the tips, I wanted to make it a point to note the importance of knowing your audience. Good SEO is customer centric. Good SEO keeps the user top of mind. It sounds obvious, but it is important to call attention to. Your content will perform significantly better if you put the customer first. If you're using internal jargon and acronyms on your website and your customers don't search that way, you're not even likely going to show up on their search engine results. So it's important to put yourself in the customer's shoes and become a resource for content, solutions, answers. This is also a good opportunity to address any foreseeable customer objections to help put their minds at ease before they make a purchase. And lastly, you'll want to consider the different stages of the marketing funnel. And I'll touch more on that in a minute. So as I mentioned, there are many aspects of SEO, but for today's purposes, I'm going to focus on these 3 buckets: keyword research, relevant content, and measuring the results. So keyword research, depending on where customers are in the buying process, they may ask different questions and search for different information, but it's important to keep in mind that aside from the impulse buys, most people are start at a pre-buying stage. So it's strategic to incorporate top of mind content throughout the decision-making process. So with that said, there are 4 types of keywords that you want to consider. There's informational. That's when the user is looking for specific information, like what's the weather like this weekend, or something that requires a little bit more detail, like tips for planning a Disney vacation. They are in the information gathering stage of the buying process. And if you can show up for them here, it will create a competitive advantage as they get closer to their buying decision. So navigational, think about when you need to go to a website that you visit frequently, like your bank. You're probably just going to type that right into the search results. You already know where you want to go. So an example of navigational search in this case would be Disney login. Commercial, when the user is looking for a specific product but hasn't made the final decision yet. For example, searches such as best restaurants in Disney. They know they want a restaurant, but they don't know which one. So this is your opportunity to serve up relevant content that's customer centric, that's going to describe the benefits of going with your product or service versus the competition. And you'll want to address the problem that you solve, include details, images, pricing to support this stage. And transactional is the last one. And this is the one that most websites are set up with content to serve. But it's really important to consider all phases of the buying journey. Here, the intent is to buy. The searcher's already made the decision to buy a specific product or service, like booking their Disney vacation. So now I want to talk about tools for keyword research. These examples just scratched the surface, but I'm sharing a few of my favorites that felt pretty intuitive as I was learning them. SEMrush was hands down my favorite tool for SEO. It's a paid tool, but they do have a free 7-day trial if you want to get in there and test drive it. It's a gold mine of information, can really provide valuable insights to better understand your target audience and your website. In this example, I used their keyword magic tool and typed quality dog food, and it returns a bunch of variations of that keyword along with the volume and keyword difficulty for each. You'll notice in the intent column right here, there's the letters represent the 4 types of keywords that we just talked about in the last slide. So let me just step back here a minute to cover these definitions quickly. For now, don't even pay attention to the other columns, but keyword volume is the volume of that keyword in a given time frame. But keep in mind that if you have a seasonal business, it may be subject to fluctuate here. Keyword difficulty is the metric that tells how much SEO effort it might take to organically rank a page in the top 10 results of Google. The lower the keyword difficulty is, the easier it's going to be to rank, but you still probably want to see what the competition is doing to make sure that your page is delivering a superior user experience. Most of these examples are called long tail keywords, which are between 3 and 5 words, and they're more specific than generic keywords, and they allow you to target a more narrow market segment, which is going to help attract higher quality traffic to your website. So in selecting keywords, you want to shoot for something that doesn't have like a crazy high volume, but something that also doesn't have a high difficulty, but it has to be relevant. So if this was my dog food company and dry dog food was part of my product line, I might start right around here where quality dry dog food is 140 for search volume and 62 for keyword difficulty. And if you want to explore these definitions a little bit further, SEMrush website has a ton of them. So the next feature that I love about SEMrush is this section. You can explore questions containing your keywords. It's real and relevant data of what people are actually searching for. This exercise will help inform the types of information that you may want to include in your blogs or FAQ pages. And it's probably also going to give you some insights of types of details that you want to include on your service or product pages. SEMrush will also show you your keyword position in search engine results and if it's rising or falling over time. So there's just so many untapped insights to explore in this tool. I'll just say a final thing about keyword research. Keep in mind that you can't just add a few keywords onto a page and expect that it's going to rank. You really need to be providing high quality, useful content using your keywords to maximize the user's experience. Another great resource is your own website. So out of curiosity, drop a 1 in the chat if you are currently using Google Search Console. And if you aren't, that's okay. I wasn't either, but please do me a favor, set it up, get in there, poke around. It's free. For me, it was life-changing. You can see queries of people that are of what people are searching for on your own website. It's another way to build out your keyword strategy and to improve on-page content. By using the filter and compare tabs over here, you can drill down on specific pages and timeframes to better understand what keywords are driving traffic to what pages. And this is also a great tool to measure your progress of the SEO changes that you've made over time. And of course, Google. So it's another free resource. And as you type your search into the search bar, but don't hit enter, you'll see some commonly searched queries here. And you'll see what people are looking for and variations of that keyword to give you some more ideas. And then a bonus resource, there's a tool called Answer the Public, which is a fun one to explore. Our senior director of operations did a great webinar a while back on all different kinds of SEO tools. This was one of them, and it's up on our YouTube channel if you want to kind of dig in and explore there a little bit more. So anyhow, let's just pretend that we're going to hit enter on this Google search. All right, on to our next topic, relevant content, title tags and meta descriptions. So title tags are the blue clickable headlines that give searchers a quick preview of what the page is about. And then just below that's the meta description. It's usually a compelling description using your keywords and differentiators and offers to try to capture that searcher's attention and make them click. For title tags, search engines typically display the first 50 to 60 characters. With title tags, you'll notice there are a few approaches, but you'll want to make sure that you include your product, service, or brand name, potentially company name, as well as a few keywords to tell the searchers what that page is about. You can also separate them with bars or dashes. If you're a local business, this is an opportunity to include location in the title tag as well, if it makes sense. But keep the title tag descriptive but concise, 60 characters max. Now, meta descriptions, I'm almost embarrassed to admit that there was a point in time where meta descriptions were an afterthought for me, when in reality they should really be a priority, as that is the front porch of your website. You want it to be inviting. You want people to come in. So when Google confirms that meta descriptions are not an SEO ranking factor, they really do affect whether or not people are going to click through to your page. So this is your opportunity to make a strong first impression to searchers and get them to click. Otherwise, the beautiful website behind your front door isn't going to get the visits that you want. So rule of thumb for meta descriptions is to keep copy around 155-ish characters. You'll notice that the meta description here at the bottom of the page was cut off. That can sometimes happen if you go over that limit or you don't put one at all and Google just grabs something from your web page. So you want to make sure that you plan for that scenario and write your copy accordingly. As you can see, everyone takes a different approach, but it's important to include keywords and differentiators up front in the brand, product, or service name. And if there's an opportunity to include a call to action, it's another great way to attract visitors to your site versus the competition. So just a heads up, Google has been known to change meta descriptions if it's in the best interest of the searcher, because they're so focused on user experience. So if that happens, don't worry, it's fairly normal. But either way, you're going to want to make sure that you write one, because without it, they're probably just going to grab snippets from your website, which may or may not be the ideal description for attracting your target audience. And the other thing I wanted to note here is you're not doing yourself any favors with Google by duplicating content for meta descriptions. And we see this a lot. So if you set up a new page, make sure that you're creating unique title tags and meta descriptions for that page. Otherwise, you're not telling Google which of those two pages is a better option to show in search results. And lastly, I just wanted to point out down here on the bottom left is my favorite Chrome extension. It's called SEO Meta in one click, and it'll give you a sneak peek into your website's current title tags, meta descriptions, and other insights. So now that you've done your keyword research, these are examples of relevant content to consider. Your goal should be to establish expertise, authority, and trust. Another acronym, EAT, with your audience. You can do this through informational, keyword-rich blogs that position you as a thought leader in your industry. For images, consider your alt tags as an opportunity to further enhance your content. Google crawls them too. So instead of naming this image as dog, or worse, image 0520, you could save this as happy dog enjoys eating personalized pet-friendly birthday cake from Giggy Bites Bakery in Chadsford, PA. The use of alt text also improves web accessibility. But yes, in case you're wondering, I did find Riley a birthday cake, and as you can see, she loved it. So headings and subheadings could be another whole webinar topic entirely, but what I will tell you is make sure that your headings are helpful and descriptive to help the reader quickly scan the page to pass what's called the 10-second test. Can you tell what a site is about in 10 seconds or less? And if not, reconsider your headings and content. So FAQs, they can be used to address commonly asked questions. If you have customer service emails that get the same questions over and over, help your customer out and create an FAQ, or use the feature in SEMrush to see what types of questions are being asked. So anchor text. These are the hyperlinks on your page and are much more effective when the text is descriptive versus click here or just showing the link itself, which provides no SEO value. Speaking of links and URLs, when creating a new web page, consider the URL name. A /services-2 won't tell Google or the searcher anything about what's on that page. Be relevant with that. And so for your web pages in general, just consider all of your content. If you have groupings of content on the same page that may be intended for different audiences, you probably want to create a separate page for each of them. Google's going to favor websites that make the path to content an easy journey without confused messaging or clutter. So to recap, your website needs to be easy to navigate so users can get straight to the content they're seeking, minimize clutter, and separate competing messages. Write a title tag that matches the search intent and craft a meta description that will help make a good first impression. Think of this section as like a little commercial to highlight your unique selling points and stand out among the competitors. And speaking of competition, once you have a list of keywords, try using them in a Google search as if you were looking for your own company without actually using your company name. What competitors come up? Pay attention to their title tags and meta descriptions and ask, how are you better and why? Now you can use that insight to craft messaging to stand out in the search results. And then the final R, results. As I mentioned before, SEO is a long game. It's not a quick fix. It will require patience. You can, of course, check in as much as you like, but you might not see the fruit of your labor for 90 to 180 days. There are a few places to measure results. So you can start by looking in Google Search Console, which we saw earlier, to see the changes in impressions over periods of time. But these reports here are some quick Google Analytics reports that will show you how you're doing. Before running your reports, you want to make sure that you're comparing the current period to the past. Otherwise, there's no context to inform you if the data that you're looking at is good or bad. But the first report is the audience overview report. It's just like a nice level overview of your metrics, your users, your sessions, page views, bounce rate. The next one is the acquisition report. It's insightful because it shows you where traffic's coming from. So you'll be able to see if there's an uptick in your organic traffic, which would be directly related to the SEO tactics that you're going to implement. Another telling report is the landing page report, which you can find drilling down under behavior, site content, into landing pages. And this report will show you where people are entering your site so you can know the pages that are responsible for driving traffic directly to your website. Our CEO and founder, Ellen Thompson, hosted a great session on Google Analytics for beginners, and it's also up on our YouTube channel if you want to dive in there a little deeper. So other SEO factors to keep in mind. I'm not going to get into too much detail here because I promised the basics and I really don't want to get too technical, but SEO will have a much greater impact if your site is secure, loads quickly, is mobile friendly, and technically sound. There are tools that can help identify issues on your website. I've included a tools and resource slide at the bottom of this presentation, which you will receive a copy of. But our director of SEO, David Tischler, gave an informative webinar a while back called Vital SEO Factors to help your site rank. And you'll be able to find that on YouTube too, if you want to look more into the technical side of SEO. But in short, there are over 200 ranking factors that Google looks at. But in order to rank first, you need to meet certain criteria. Your site and its content need to be found, understood, and able to be displayed. Google pays really close attention to 3 key metrics, which measure the loading time, responsiveness, and visual quality of a page to ensure a better user experience for visitors. And that's all I'll say about technical SEO. So where do you get started? Honestly, it's just one page at a time. There's really no point in feeling overwhelmed and like you need to tackle every page on your website at once. Just like identify 5 or so and work on 1 a week. Think about the core pages to your business. They could be those that best summarize your business or organization, or 5 pages that you really want to drive traffic to, like a newly launched product or service. The other starting point would be looking at your all pages report in Google Analytics. Set a period of time for 6 to 12 months and take a look at your top 5 pages. Review them to see what opportunities exist to further optimize them. But just to recap, you want to perform the keyword research through the lens of the customer. You want to review title tags and meta descriptions, asking things like, are your important keywords up front? Does the description accurately reflect what's on the page? If there's an opportunity to throw in some differentiators to help you stand out. And if there's an opportunity to add a call to action or compelling language, it's going to entice a click. Update copy on that corresponding page and make sure that it's relevant, and decide how and when you're going to measure the results. And then just repeat for each page. So congratulations, you are one step closer to sprinkling some SEO into your marketing strategy this year. My goal for this presentation was for you to pick up 1 or 2 tips to take back to work and implement right away. I hope you found it useful, but now we're going to open it up for questions, and I just wanted to invite some of our SEO experts into this portion of the presentation for backup. These guys took me under their wing, and they taught me that SEO does not have to be scary. So Kevin Whitbeck is our Senior Director of Operations. He oversees all of the digital marketing and web teams here, and David Tischler is one of the directors of SEO. So with that, I will give it back to Carissa.
Awesome. Thanks, Meg. Okay, so Kim asked a question and she said ignore it, but I'm not going to ignore it because I'm sure you're not the only one with this question. Where do we use the keywords? I think you talked a lot about title tags, meta descriptions, but could you elaborate a little bit more on how to use the keywords in title tags, meta descriptions, headings, and content?
Sure. So, I mean, you just really want to take a look at your content that's on the webpage and figure out how to incorporate those keywords so that it's natural and that it enhances the user experience. So I did kind of talk about it with the meta descriptions and the title tags, but if there's an opportunity to include those up front, and then, that other page that just gives relevant content examples, it shows you where you can include those keywords. So blogs, FAQs, your URL, make sure that you're just serving relevant content to your users.
All right. So when it comes to SEO, does Google analyze photos on the site too? For example, if I designed a web banner outside of WordPress and then uploaded it instead of typing into WordPress natively, would this negatively impact SEO, or how does it impact SEO? And if you want to kick this to someone else, I'll leave that up to you.
I will answer it, but then I'll also kick it. So my understanding, if it turns it into an image, which is what I think they're saying, then Google's not going to be able to crawl that because there's not going to be text that's readable. But if Kevin or David want to further elaborate, please feel free.
I can jump in.
Oh, go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, best practice is to really have anything that you want text-based that's readable to be actual HTML text on your website. Google is getting better at understanding text in imagery. They have improved their technologies. They're now using something called MUM that's going to be allowing them to better understand text within imagery and make those relationships back to the queries that users are making. But best practice is to really get that in HTML so that Google can really understand that text-based content and how that relates back to the searcher's intent and to the rest of the content on your page. So it's kind of a twofold answer and a little bit complex, but yes.
If you're using an image, you can also make sure to title the image, like Meg said, add alt text to the image, and that can help with SEO, right?
Yes. Title the image, use your alt text. You can use the title elements on images as well to be informative to the search engines.
Awesome. So this is a great question. What makes a keyword more difficult than the others, and how are they rated?
Excellent question on that one. I'll jump in on that. So what generally makes it more competitive, more difficult, is how competitive it is. How many people are trying to get the audience for those same keywords? Remind me again, what was the second part of that question?
How are they rated or ranked?
So it's really just on, again, how competitive is it? How are they used throughout the content? There are certain places within the content on the page that would give you a little bit more power. For instance, like Meg referred to, putting them in the front of a header, for instance, or a headline, incorporating them within the body of the content, using them within bullet points and things like that are going to give you a little bit more edge than somebody who just lists them.
Got it.
So I see what do the actual numbers represent there, and it's a scale of 0 to 100, and higher is more difficult.
What is the recommended minimum engagement for SEO, since, as you discussed, it's not a one and done situation?
For me, it's something that is just part of every campaign. It should be ongoing at the very least and go in cycles. With as often as Google changes its algorithm and updates the things that it's looking at, it's important to have somebody who's taken a look at these things and making sure you're up to date. So when I go through, I look for the low-hanging fruit. I make sure the speed is up and all the technical items are in place. And then we look at on-page content, and then we look at backlinking, and we look at all of these factors, but then we go back and we cycle back to those every few months. So it's really important to just keep that going. Ideally, like at a minimum, it takes roughly 6 to 8 weeks to really get traction in doing SEO. But if you do that and then once make your changes, leave it alone, eventually that's going to fade off and relatively quickly.
Got it. Okay, a couple more questions here. So one is pretty specific, Renee. I'll reach out to you separately afterwards to help you with your question, if that's okay. But what I wanted to know also, or a great question here by Chris, what about optimal length of on-page content? Is there an optimal length?
As much as it really takes to tell the information to the user. You want to be as comprehensive as you can be. Google's going to take more of your content into account if you're really comprehensive around a topic, if you can answer all of those questions that a user is going to be asking. If you can do that in 200 words, by all means, do it in 200 words. But more often than not, it's going to take a little bit more than that. So really making sure that you're being clear, getting your messaging across, and providing a good user experience is the most important part. On average, we would recommend that you have, like a 300 to 500 word minimum, just because it's going to take a little bit more to explain things. But some pages may require a little bit less. It's kind of a roundabout answer. So
I will say when we are working with clients, we recommend 500 to 700 words per page. So maybe a few more words than Kevin's, but great answer. So someone has asked, what tools or resources do we recommend to help solve site speed issues?
So I have a few that I really like. And of course, SEMrush is on here. SEO Meta in one click is good. There's a couple of other places to go. Webpagetest.org and gtmetrics.com, both of which are listed here and also accessible through GTmetrics is accessible through that SEO Meta click extension as well under the tools section. But both of those will give you really detailed information on where you're having the issue. For a slow website, you're going to find that most of the time it has to do with image size and how the code is lined up.
Sorry, everyone. I was finding our YouTube for everybody. All right, so that's all the questions in our chat. I think that, David, those are great tools to analyze our SEO or our site speed, but we obviously, if you run into some issues, you can always reach out to us. If there are issues that require a professional or a web developer, we certainly have someone on staff who could take a look at what you're up against and give you a hand if you need it. So feel free to reach out anytime. Meg, thank you so much for your presentation. It was awesome. I know I've learned a few things listening to you give it today, and I'm sure other people did as well. Thanks, Kevin and David, for jumping in on the Q&A. And if anybody on the presentation has any other questions that may have sparked throughout today's presentation, feel free to reach out anytime. We're happy to chat.